Namaste, and welcome to the second day of ICCS's 7th International Conference and Gathering of the Elders, bringing together over 30 ancient cultures onto one platform from all over the world to inform, inspire, and instruct how to build a sustainable civilization in the 21st century through championing humanity. We have practitioners of ancient traditions, activists, well-wishers, and thought leaders contributing to 26 hours of content spread over the last 2 days. This is the first ever virtual conference by ICCS, and we have 650 people registered from all over the world across 3 different time zones. International Center for Culture Studies, ICCS for short as we know it, was set up 25 years ago. It's run by volunteers, and it gives a voice and a platform to ancient traditions from around the world. We have centers in India, Indonesia, East Africa, Europe, USA, and Colombia. We set up this conference every 3 years, and I'd like to specifically welcome you to the Indo-Pacific region part of the conference for the next 3 hours. To kickstart this first day, we've got Sri Soumitraji Gokhale, who is a pracharak. He has a bachelor's in metallurgy from Pune, India, master's in mechanical engineering from Canada. He's a full-time worker for Hindu community and has worked in Caribbean, Trinidad, Guyana, and Suriname since January 2000, and in America since 2004. We are delighted, and it's our honor to have him with us today. He also sits on the advisory board of ICCS and has been working with ancient traditions from across the world since 2008. Welcome to ICCS conference, Soumitraji. Over to you.
Namaste, Soumitraji. Welcome to the 7th International Gathering of Elders organized by the International Center for Cultural Studies. Namaste.
Namaste, Sachinji. Thank you very much.
Now, Soumitraji, you sit as an advisor and on the advisory board for the ICCS International. And so you are the perfect candidate to ask the question, could you tell us a little bit about the aims and objectives of the ICCS globally?
Sure. So actually, I feel very fortunate that I have been able to attend all the 7 or the past 6 international elders conferences of the ancient traditions. And this is the 7th one, which is happening virtually. And ICCS, the aim is to get all the people who are practitioners of their own ancient traditions together, to come together, to understand one another, to know about each other, and to try to revitalize these traditions, which have suffered a lot in the past couple of centuries especially. And now we find a movement throughout the world where people belonging to these ancient traditions, they want to go back to the roots. They want to kind of understand their own traditions from their own perspective, start practicing them, and bring that to life. So all such people, ICCS aims to bring them together, not only bring them together, and not only to understand, but even to document, study, research, publish, and draw strength from each other. That is also the aim and objective of ICCS, and it has been doing for the past 20 plus years in all parts of the world, whether it is the African traditions, whether it is the pagan traditions in Europe, or the Southeast Asian traditions, or the native traditions in the Americas. And we found that there is a great amount of similarity at least in spirit. The details may be different, but they share a lot of things in common, whether it is the search for truth, spirituality in life, connection with ancestors, a relationship with Mother Earth. So many things are there. And I think ICCS has been taking up different themes to highlight what each tradition has in each of these areas. So I think that's what ICCS has been doing in different parts of the world. And I'm glad that we are having the 7th conference, although it is virtual, but we are not skipping it. I think that's a great thing.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. And Sumitaji, could you explain a little bit about why you believe it's important for these ancient traditions to be revitalized, and why you believe it's important for them to draw strength from each other? Why is this important now?
Absolutely. Actually, it is even more important now than even before. The past few centuries, we have seen a rise of human civilization in terms of economy, in terms of technology. And now we have realized that yes, the economies have risen. There is a tremendous amount of wealth in some parts of the world at least. And technology is also rising. But we have, in a way, destroyed the environment. Mother Earth is suffering. All the ancient traditions actually have a philosophy, a view of life, where there is a kind of a intimate relationship with Mother Earth. And hence, people who believe in that kind of worldview need to come together. There is a slogan where people say that we need to save the earth. Actually, we are trying to save ourselves. We are trying to serve our Mother Earth, and we will save ourselves. People who believe in this not only as a policy and strategy, but as a value of life, as a conviction in their life, such people should come together. And all the people of the ancient traditions believe in this. The very first conference in 2003, the Elders Conference rather, one of the slogans that was given is "Children of Mother Earth unite." And I think that is extremely important in today's situation. Also, all these traditions during the colonial period and even the period before that, because of proselytization efforts, they were maligned, they were attacked, societies were disrupted and destroyed. And now once again, they are trying to revive many of them. It is just going to be very good if all of them come together and share with each other their own efforts, how they have been doing, what are their successes, what is it we can learn from each other. For that also, this coming together, I think, is quite important. Then all the ancient traditions have a complete view of life, not just one-sided, not just materialistic, not just spiritualistic, but a complete view of life, an integrated approach. And hence, to share each other's experiences in terms of not only individuals seeking of spiritual truths, but how to build the communities, how we can pass on these ideas and values to our next generation. How can they take it up? There are many experiments happening in different parts of the world. Coming together gives an opportunity to share that, learn from each other, and go back with renewed inspiration. And hence coming together, working together to work in our own areas. It is not to say that we have to merge together and become some kind of one group or like that, not necessarily. There will be diversity, because that is also something special about ancient traditions, that they all respect diversity. They believe that there are many paths and there can be many different ways to approach and achieve what we want to do, especially seeking the spiritual truth. And hence, respecting all the diversity, we can come together. And we can come together to work on common themes, common ideas, to be able to deal with modern human problems. Although these traditions are ancient, their philosophy, their value system is very much applicable even today. And many of those things, if that become the mainstay of our life in modern times, I think it will be really good for entire humanity and the entire human civilization. And hence coming together, working together, learning from each other, sharing with each other, drawing strength from each other becomes extremely important for all these things, I feel. And hopefully that kind of realization will come more and more.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. My final question, Soumitra, for you is ICCS has been doing tremendous work for over 20 years now, and it is a volunteer-led organization supported by well-wishers and people's good wishes. What are the traits that each of us should be cultivating at this conference that we can take back to our countries and to our traditions in terms of how we should work together, with what spirit? Could you tell us a little bit about the spirit of the volunteer?
Absolutely. I think first of all, the genuine interest in knowing about each other, to truly understand from their perspective. That spirit, that open-mindedness is the very first thing that we should do to be able to. So each one of us will have our own way of looking at things, but to be able to grasp what others are also saying about the same thing, I think that open-mindedness is the very first thing. Secondly, feeling that we have something larger to achieve, all of us together. That firm belief that we are here for a greater good. Yes, I believe and I am very proud about my tradition, and I will work hard in my own community. At the same time, I would like all others to do the same in their own community, but having respect for each other and working on common themes which are of greater interest. I think that should be the spirit. So one is open-mindedness, then having the greater purpose in mind, that is definitely there. Then many times there may be, things that come in the way of working together. Could be over-attachment to my own view, maybe individual egos, sometimes even collective egos, how we can rise above them. That is also an extremely important thing. And then not thinking only in terms of any kinds of gains, quote unquote, material gains, but working for something that is beyond our little existence. So I think having that kind of individual purpose, individual higher purpose, I think that should be the spirit of volunteering. And I have seen this in people coming, the delegates who have been to these conferences, or in whichever countries I go. And I make it a point to meet the elders as well as practitioners, young and not so young. And such individuals exist everywhere in all the communities. With that selflessness, that volunteerism will be very, very useful. And that should be the spirit, where we are not trying to talk over one another. We are not trying to prove ourselves better than somebody else. So once that is there, I think this world will be a much better and peaceful and harmonious place. All the ancient traditions have that kind of spirit embedded in their cultures. And that is why all these people coming together, actually it is not very difficult. Yeah, maybe the geographical distance keeps us, or the, some of them may not have the resources to do it. But now it has become very easy, transportation, communication, and we can really interact with one another with ease. As far as the mindset is concerned, ancient people of ancient traditions can easily work with each other. They already have it in their cultures. It's just that putting that effort, that voluntary effort, and doing it, getting it done, having that kind of drive to do it, if that is there, I believe that this movement will keep growing, and it is already global, but it will become a very strong movement that will come to really help humanity to rise above all the problems that we ourselves have created in the past few centuries. I really believe, I'm quite sanguine about all these people coming together and working together.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sumitraji. And thank you for joining us on the conference. Namaste.
Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you, Soumitraji. That was a lovely way to start the second day of our conference. Really liked your point about having the spirit of open-mindedness and looking at the greater good in whatever it is that we're doing and working selflessly. So thank you very much for that. Our next speaker we have for today is Dr. Rita Kamalapurkar. She is a professor and an expert in German language and literature and research, and she's a researcher in Indological studies. She's published a lot of research papers on German literary works and depiction of India in German press, Indological studies in Germany with special reference to Rig Veda and the fire worship, which is the yajna. And her interests have been mainly in Agni Yotra, and she's published scientific research papers in Agni Yotra and Vedic literature. So looking forward to listening to you. Dr. Rita Kamalapurkar, over to you.
Now here I am going to perform Agni Yotra for you, and I am going to show how Agni Yotra is performed. This is, as you see, is a copper pyramid. Then I have here dry cow dung cake. I have here some raw rice, unbroken rice grains for the oblations, and clarified butter made out of cow milk. Then I have here camphor sticks. Now I am going to light the fire. I am arranging these cow dung cake, pieces of cow dung cake in the pot so that there will be a proper ventilation. Then I am putting the camphor and I am igniting now the fire. As we know, Agni Yotra is performed twice daily, and exactly at the sunset or sunrise time, the fire in which we are going to perform Agni Yotra is to be lit 2 to 3 minutes before the Agni Yotra time, that is exact local time of sunrise or sunset. When after 2 to 3 minutes the fire comes out properly without smoke, and we can, while chanting mantras, we can give the oblations in it. Now you can see the fire is lit properly and the time is nearing for the sunset Agni Yotra. I am now mixing the oblation, that is rice grains smeared with clarified butter. I will be making 2 sip portions of almost exact amount, and exactly at the time of sunset I will be offering my oblations. To find out the local sunset and sunrise time, we can use the app also, Agni Yotra app also. Agnaye Swaha, Agnaye Idam Namo, Prajapataye Swaha, Prajapataye Idam Namo. A very good morning to all the dignitaries and eminent scholars connected with ICCS from all over the globe. This is Rita Kamalapurkar, presenting here some key points regarding the basic yajna ritual explained in the Vedas. This ritual is known as Agni Yotra or morning and evening sacrifices. In order to study religious and cultural specifications of any country, it becomes necessary to observe and research the ritualistic performances of the native people. Similarly, while studying the Indian cultural traditions, Vedas, Brahmanas, various sutras, Upanishads, and the Vedic literature have the most important place. Thus, the importance of ritualistic performances and the studies regarding them become inevitable. Basic ritual, according to the Vedic tradition, is yajna. Rigveda explains it in its very first verse. I quote, Om Agninire Purohitam Yajnasya Devam Rutvijam Hotaram Ratnadatamam. The sacrifices are the first original and basic dharma according to Rigveda. It was the first and original way of worship or ritualistic practice. Yajna is the basic religion and is supposed to be followed by everyone. Rigveda explains it emphasizingly furthermore as, I quote, Yajnena yajnamayajanta devas tani dharmani prathamanyasam. Gods worship the Yajna Purusha with the Yajna. For obtaining health, wealth, long life, offspring, cattle, victory, rains, good harvest, freedom from the evil power, total salvations, the offerings are made in Agni or fire. According to Indian religious traditions, the system of yajna was given by the God himself at the beginning of the creation to human beings. It is a link between the gods and the human beings. The ancient people offered their worship to the God or the supreme creator. Man approached God through Agni or fire, who invoked him on their behalf. The rules regarding the performances of sacrifices govern the equilibrium of the atmosphere. The Purva Mimamsa explains Vedas as eternal and apaurushaya, that is, not created by any human being. The religious performance of yajna is explained by the Vedas. The mantras that are to be chanted during the rite are elaborated in the Vedas. Thus, it is called Shrauta religion. Unfortunately, only some part of the original Vedic literature is available now. Information about the sacrifices has been spread out all over the Vedic literature. In the Brahmanas, one can get more details, including instructions for their performance.
However, the Shrauta Sutras and the Shulba Sutras are the systematic treatment of the subject is obtained. In the Shulba Sutras, one finds the complete details of the constructional and engineering aspects of sacrifice, like measurements and formation of the Vedi, that is altar. The Shrauta Sutras are the functional manuals for the priests and give the modus operandi of various rites in detail. Yajnas can be classified into various groups. It is most simple classification of yajnas is like this. The regular type of yajnas that are performed regularly. For example, Agni Yotra, that is every morning and evening sacrifice. The occasional type of yajnas are performed for special cause or on certain special occasion. And even there is one more type, that is some yajnas are performed with a certain wish. Those are called kamya yajnas. Today, I would like to discuss Agni Yotra in details. Offering oblations in the fire twice daily, that is at the time of sunrise and sunset, is called Agni Yotra, which is a very simple and easy practice. It can be performed by anyone. Eventually, this rite was developed larger. This elaborated rite was considered same as Agni Yotra rite. It got expanded into three-folded form, which consists of three different fires. They are Garhapatya, Ahavaniya, and Dakshinagni. The original Agni Yotra rite is explained by the Vedas, and the larger rite of Agni Yotra is explained by the writers of Shastras. Eko Agni Purvamasid Aila Prim Stan Akalpayan. I quote, the quote complete. The practitioners of Agni Yotra were called Ahitagnis. If they had this elaborated form of Agni Yotra with three different fires, they had to follow many rules. At the same time, the important thing is that they have to perform Agni Yotra every morning at the sunrise and in the evening at the time of sunset. Though with the time, the elaborated rite was understood same as the original Agni Yotra, the rite according to the Vedas was very easy, simple and small. The larger rite of Agni Yotra did not remain in the daily schedule of common man due to its size, disciplines, rules and regulations. This elaborated three-folded form of Agni Yotra is known as Tretagni Vistar. The story of Tretagni Vistar occurs in Bhagavad Mahapurana. In the Treta Yuga, King Aila elaborated Agni Yotra fire into three forms. The original form of Agni was one. King Aila has developed it larger into three forms of Agni, that is Garhapatya, Ahavaniya and Dakshinagni. While explaining the relation of Agni Yotra with other sacrifices, Bodevitz, a German Indologist, states it is a simple sacrifice and compulsory. It forms the daily confirmation of the relationship between the Ahitagni and its fire. Indeed, the Agni Yotra may have several cosmological implications in Brahmanas. The cumulative effect of all the steps of performance makes one believe that Agni Yotra should be something mere than a religious rite. Then let us gather some information about the basic ritualistic practice of Agni Yotra. It is stated earlier, Agni Yotra is performed twice a day at exact local time of sunset and sunrise. A semi-pyramid shaped copper pot is prescribed for Agni Yotra. The pot, that is copper pyramid, should be placed on a fire-resistant place. A small fire is prepared with the cow dung cakes, dry cow dung cakes in the pot. The cow dung pieces should be arranged so that there is good ventilation in the pot. First put small piece below and then arrange the pieces one above the other to have some gap in between them. One can use gugul, camphor, or a cotton wick soaked in cow ghee to ignite the fire. Use of any petroleum product should be strictly avoided. For oblations, rice grains and clarified butter are required. 30 to 45 grains per oblations are sufficient. It is almost 2 pinches of raw unbroken rice grains smeared with clarified butter made of cow milk. 2 or 3 drops of clarified butter are sufficient. Then with the right hand, give the offerings in the smoke-free fire. The oblations are offered while chanting 2 Vedic mantras. They are easy to articulate. You can see on your screens the sunrise mantras and sunset mantras. Every time after saying Swaha, put the oblation in the fire. These mantras of morning and evening sacrifices occur at first place in Yajurveda. Then they are found in various Brahmanas. They are in Ashwalayan, Parashara, and Gobila Gruhya Sutra. As Gobil Gruhya Sutra refers, these mantras occur in Ashwalayan Gruhya Sutra as the part of mantras of Aupasan Homa, that is regular rituals. Then they are referred in the official scriptures regarding Nitya Karma and regular rites. According to Yajurveda, at the time of creation of the universe, Prajapati created the Agni at first. Hence, offerings in the Agni should be the first rite decided Prajapati. It says further, at the sunset, the offerings are obliged to Agni and Prajapati. At the sunrise, the glory of Agni is transferred into sun. Thus, offerings of morning are for sun and Prajapati. Yajurveda further says that after oblations, certain mantras regarding Agni and sun are to be chanted. It shows that the offering 2 oblations in the morning and 2 in the evening was Agni Yotra rite that was followed originally. The fire worship is the basic religion and at the same time the important medium with which the basic foundation of life becomes strong, wide, and everlasting. In addition to that, everyone can perform fire worship. There is no prerequisite. One who has got a wish to perform can offer libations in the fire. I quote, Upatva agne dive dive, doshavasara dhyavayam, namo baranta emasi. The references of morning and evening sacrifices are found in the Rigveda in the first mandala. This is very significant. The Rigveda describes the effectiveness of fire worship from its beginning. While explaining the results of yajna done every evening and morning, Atharvaveda explains, Sayam Sayam Gruhapatirno Agnihi Pratah Pratah Saumanasasya Data. Pratah pratah grohapatirno agnihi sayam sayam saumanasasya data. It says the Agnihotra that is performed in the morning keeps the mind fresh, enthusiastic, and happy till the evening. And the Agnihotra performed in the evening keeps the mind fresh till the morning. Saumanasasya, which is cheerfulness of mind, will not be possible unless one is relieved of both physical and mental anxieties and the stress therefrom. The dynamic energy of mind is thus set into action. In these words, the religion is explained in detailed manner in the Vedas. The basic original religion is expressed in a simple language. The behavior and the lifestyle according to this basic religion is also simple and easy. But at the same time, the practice leads towards achieving the ultimate goal of the life on this earth. The Agnihotra rite is emphasized everywhere in the Vedas and in the Vedic literature as the easy and simple ritual. The equipments that are required for Agnihotra are affordable to every person in the society. There is no bar between caste, creed, color, religion, and sex. Anyone who can sing the mantras, who can follow the discipline of time, can perform Agnihotra daily. Here, Agnihotra is discussed with the ritualistic views, as many people love to know where exactly one finds the references of these sacrifices in the ancient scriptures. Today, many scientists are working to find out the effects of Agnihotra Yajna with the yardsticks of natural sciences and modern technologies with all the possible dimensions in various parts of the globe. Some of the important researches are undertaken in Germany, India, America, Poland, Chile, and in some other countries with a scientific approach. All these researchers show the usefulness and importance of sacrifices in various ways and angles in the daily life of common man all over the world. It is a proven powerful solution to pollution according to the scientists and scholars. Hence, many people have started adopting this as their lifestyle. I thank you all for listening me patiently. I thank the organizers of ICCS for giving me an opportunity to express my views. Thank you once again.
Thank you, Dr. Kamalapurkar. That was a really nice detailed account of how to carry out Agnihotra ritual. I'm sure everybody watching has a lot of things that they've learned from this. Next, we have a panel discussion, which is an insight into European and Latin American traditions, and especially how young people discover and carry through these ancient traditions. We will have Dr. Sachin Nanda, Adriana Vega, and Dr. Jonathan Woolley, who are going to be part of the discussion. Dr. Sachin Nanda has a PhD in political philosophy. He's an advisor to ICCS Europe chapter, and he'll be giving the Hindu tradition perspective. Dr. Jonathan Woolley has a PhD in anthropology. He works in the civil service and is a practicing Druid following the Druid order. We've got Adriana Vega. She is a full-time worker for ICCS in Colombia, and she's very familiar and is part of the Colombian ancient tradition. So over to you all.
Namaste, and I'm delighted to join you all this morning for the Indo-Pacific session, where we will explore traditions from Europe and the British Isles in particular, and also South America, Colombia in particular. I'll have two wonderful guests joining me, and we'll be having an open conversation with each of them about the respective traditions and their personal journeys into discovering the value of the ancient traditions. My name is Dr. Sachin Nanda, and I am part of the ICCS team in the UK. And it's my pleasure to introduce you to Dr. Jonathan Woolley. Jonathan is a dear friend, first and foremost. He is a part of the Order of Druids in the British Isles. And he is an anthropologist also by training. So Jonathan, welcome.
Thank you, Sachinji. It's an honor to be here.
Great. And with us, joining us, is Adriana. Adriana G is from Colombia, and she is also a full-time worker for the ICCS in Colombia. And Adriana G works very closely with the elders of South America and Colombia in particular. So Adriana, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Sachinji. It's very nice to be here.
Pleasure. And it's great. Thank you guys for joining us. And so what I want to do is, we are talking, our audience are basically everybody who lives kind of in Southeast Asia, all the way up to Japan and New Zealand, right? So Britain and Colombia are a long way away, right? And yet ancient traditions have existed all over the world, right? Where as long as there's been humanity, there's been these old traditions. And so what I wanted to do was have a little bit of an exploration with both of you and really just ask, maybe if I can come to you, Jonathan, first, and then maybe Adriana, I'll come to you. But I wanted to ask a little bit about, tell us a little bit about yourself, Jonathan, firstly, in terms of your upbringing. Were you born into the tradition, or did you discover the tradition of the Druid order? And what is the journey of most practitioners of ancient traditions in the UK? Like, what is their journey? How do they discover their particular tradition?
Thank you, Sachin. So a little bit about my journey. It would probably start at a very young age. If you speak to the average druid or witch about their experiences, they'll often say, "Oh, I've always been a witch," or "I've always been a druid." And what they mean is that ever since they were very little, they've always encountered spiritual beings. They've found fairies at the bottom of the garden. When I was a little kid, I always used to sort of make potions and want to go out and play in the forest. And it's those sorts of connections which really kind of sort of reach maturation and fulfillment with our spiritual practice. But in terms of a broader kind of, was I brought up a druid? Absolutely not. So I was actually raised a Christian. My mum's Christian. My dad is an atheist. And in fact, that's very similar to most sort of European sort of followers of nature spirituality. We tend to discover it in the course of our adolescence. So I found out about the existence of the Order of Bards, Ovates and Druids when I was about sort of 14 or 15. And it was actually partly because I was reading about these sort of books. They're actually sort of fiction, so they're sort of a comic book where one of the main characters is a druid. Had a great white beard and had tremendous magical powers and was very wise, and I was very impressed with him. And I was always very sad because I thought that the druids didn't exist anymore. And until like a friend of my mum's mentioned that actually there were druids, and they met at Stonehenge, which is a great sort of sacred site in the south of England, every year at the summer solstice. And I got really excited and I started looking them up online. And I found my current order. I didn't join until much later, when I was about sort of 21. But a lot of people I started getting interested in that form of spirituality and started practicing on my own from about that point. And I think that's very common for people in my tradition. There are we're still very small. So there aren't many druids, there aren't a huge number of witches, but we all and there are people who are starting to be born into the tradition, but it's very much very much the norm to join the tradition from outside. So as being brought up a Christian, I was actually confirmed in the Church of England, or as an atheist.
And then you became a heathen.
I became a heathen, yes. My vicar never lived it down.
So Adriana, tell me a little bit about your childhood, and particularly how you discovered the tradition of the elders in Colombia.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so here in Colombia, we have about 102 indigenous ethnic groups. I was born in a location where it used to be one of those, and when we were colonized and it disappeared, that community, the Muisca community. So in my personal path, it has been about since my childhood, and thanks to my parents as well, like a reconnection with my roots, considering there are many sacred territories and different things that they left for us, and so it has been quite easy in a way for us to acknowledge that there were certain communities here living behind, like before us, and also a very important knowledge regarding the medicinal plants. And so in my personal life, that has been my path to reconnecting through the plants, and so that has been a way. So yeah.
Brilliant. And that's interesting, right? Because straight away I can see that what you're saying, Adriana, is that you kind of grew up in the atmosphere. It was kind of all around you, that you knew that there was something older that existed once upon a time, right? It was kind of was it in the landscape? Could you tell, like, in sort of the names of the mountains or the forests, or how did you know that there was something older than this?
I would say then one is the language. Like, so of course we speak Spanish here, but we use certain words and things that are not Spanish and represent that language, like Quechua language from here. So that's a very powerful way to bring the vibrations that used to be here, and that's a way to recreate them. So that's one thing. The other thing is the artifacts, like the potters that we use, like for cooking, the way like the houses and the constructions traditionally our constructions are made. So all those little things that that has been a way to remember how we used to be in the past. And so the music as well, that's another very, very important thing. The instruments that we have here, that are pretty much lots of flutes for the mountains and all these things. So I guess if we really wanted to reconnect with our ancestors, there are many things around us that can help us to remember.
Do you find that a lot of young people are aware of this? Like are a lot of people aware of what you just told me, or is it just a few?
Oh no, we're definitely are more and more, because of course we are in a global situation where we are realizing that that's the only way that we can bring back the values and things that we really need to bring back, so we live in a better way. So yeah, it's a community. I would say there's a community of young youths, families that are deciding that that's a path, and that means a lot to grow our own food, to live in a community, to organize ourselves, but from the community perspective, which that's something that we lost it.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah.
And Jonathan, I suspect you can resonate with quite a lot of that, right? Because so what would be the language of the Druids?
Right. So, so the Druids so the ancient Druids would have spoken a number of different languages. They would have spoken Gaulish, which was the sort of Celtic language that was spoken in France about 2,000 years ago. On the island of Britain, where I am currently, they would have spoken Brythonic and maybe Pictish up in the north. And then on the island of Ireland, they would have spoken the ancestor of Old Irish, which is a language which is preserved, which evolved into modern Irish, obviously, but that form of Irish is preserved in medieval manuscripts in the same way that descendants of Brythonic are preserved in medieval manuscripts, like, for example, Old Welsh, which is the descendant of the modern Welsh language, and similarly with Gaelic in Scotland. You know, they descend from the language that the Druids.
So just like Adriana, then, do you find that if you have connection with the language, you can actually very easily sort of scratch the surface and get to those deeper, older traditions? Is that similar?
Absolutely. So there is, because I think one of the most powerful ways you can tap into the kind of philosophical depth of a culture is through its language. And indeed, you know, when you look at Welsh and Irish, a lot of the way that people express themselves and the way that concepts are framed, it contains sort of philosophical wisdom and teaching, and it's also woven in with the landscape. Something that's very characteristic of Wales and Ireland, in fact, is that the place names there, you can actually, like, the people know the origin of the place names because their place names are in these living ancient these living languages. So and those place names contain within them myths and stories. So for example, one of the a very famous location in Wales is Dinas Emrys in Snowdon, and Dinas Emrys means, like, you know, the fort of Merlin, Emrys being one of the names of Merlin. So obviously this is the Merlin of King Arthur.
Yes.
Right? Yes. So learning language is incredibly important, and the current head of my Druid order, Emma Burke, who is going to be speaking at the Europe and Africa ICCS conference, she has been ardently in favour of promoting the Irish language and trying to encourage Irish liturgy within our rituals, because
right.
there are similar figures who, people like Christopher Hughes, for example, who promotes the role of the Welsh language, which, and I'm learning Welsh at the moment myself. I'm very much a beginner, but I definitely one day would love to be able to use Welsh in liturgy. And
so would you say there's some sort of, like, for example, Welsh has become compulsory right now for all kids in Wales?
Yes. So
it's modern Welsh.
Modern Welsh, yes. So I mean, and modern Welsh and Old Welsh, you know, obviously the language has evolved over time, and indeed that the same is true in Ireland. Learning the Irish language is compulsory for school children, and the success of those educational efforts have varied. So Welsh has become quite widely spoken amongst younger people in Wales, but in Ireland, the sort of growth of the Irish language has been a little less successful, and there's a lot of debate and discussion and controversy around that. But yes, it is encouraged amongst the young.
And so both of you, this is a question for both of you. Adriana, you can start. Are you finding that is there really, I mean, we live in a world of kind of so much noise and distraction. You know, we're living in the information age, and you know, are you finding that more and more people are discovering the ways of their ancestors and this different set of value system, maybe if I can call it that for now, by kind of, you know, are you seeing some sort of renaissance happening, or are you actually seeing it the other way, where you're actually seeing that there's this monolithic kind of American culture or something that's coming and spreading everywhere, and it's kind of, you know, it's wiping everything out? Which way do you see the society in Colombia going?
I would say we feel that this, of course, this pandemic has helped us a lot to realize that there is something that we needed to pay attention, and that the direction of to where we should be paying attention to is to our elders, our elder brothers, we say here. From our worldview, we say that for us the future is in the past, and so I think that's for us that is super clear now, like the direction of how we should be start co-creating our reality. It has a lot to do with the past, and it makes sense. This making sense.
Yeah, could you explain that a little bit for our listeners? When you say our future is the past, just to tell a little bit more about what you mean.
So this is a teaching from our elder brothers, and they said you can see, you don't know how the future looks like. So if you can see the future, that means that the only thing that we can see in the future is in the past, because we can see the past, but we have no idea what is the future like. So that means that it doesn't exist. So yeah, that's
okay. And it's really interesting, because that kind of brings it onto the notion of time, right? The ancient traditions have a unique way of experiencing time, right? And you know, for example, I know within the Hindu tradition, you know, time is cyclical, right? Time is cyclical, and it's sort of, it doesn't mean that what's happened is going to happen again. It means that in some sense that things find their way about in this sort of spiral of life, and everything in life is interconnected through these circular movements. Is that similar in kind of the Druid order, Jonathan? And what's their notion of time there? Do you have any idea?
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, one of the main sort of motifs, I suppose, of modern Druidry is the wheel of the year, which is the cycle of the seasons that you have in some temperate parts of the world. So, summer, autumn, winter, and spring. And in that cycle, we see also the cycle of any kind of process, where particularly the cycle of the human life, from sort of from youth through to adulthood, to old age, and then death, and also the cycle of a creative project, or indeed, you know, the rise and fall of nations. You know, you can see there is a great deal of symbolism that's held in that yearly cycle, which repeats every year. And indeed, I think there is a sort of, and that has a kind of cosmological resonance within the broader kind of Druidic mythology as well, because the teaching very much is that we sort of we reincarnate from lifetime to lifetime, and we travel between two different worlds, this world and the other world. And the difference with the other world is all sorts of alterations from this one, but it mirrors it. So, for example, there's this old tradition that the Celts would mourn a birth and celebrate a death, because they were mourning the death of the person in the other world,
right,
once they were reborn as a child in this one, and then they would celebrate a death because the child is being because a child has been born in the other world. So there is a beautiful. And that. Yeah. It creates that same notion that even though things are not like the same thing will not happen again necessarily, but there's that sense of cyclicity and a spiral that continues on to the future.
Wonderful, yeah. Adriana, anything similar like that within the Colombian sort of elders, and how they talk about time, how they experience time?
Yeah, just as I was saying before, like about the idea that the future doesn't exist, of course, and the only thing that we can see is in the past. And so that means that it makes them more conscious of what we do in the present, because immediately we can see what are the results. And yeah, so That's,
okay. No,
yeah.
that's useful. I suppose. So one of the things that really sort of always, one of the key central themes about this conference. So I know that in the Indo-Pacific region, a lot of the ancient traditions are challenged. They're facing a very challenging ecosystem, right? Where, as we are talking about kind of, an environment where kind of more and more people may be discovering these old ways and these old wisdoms. In the Indo-Pacific region, it seems the other way. It seems like, there is a real challenging environment for these older tribes. And, I suppose one of the things is there anything that binds these ancient traditions together? And why do you think it's important that, we kind of do these sorts of seminars and exchange these sorts of views? And because the cynic could turn around and say, look, guys, humanity's existed for millennia, and, people come and go, and every tribe, as they've developed, have created their own religions and their own customs, and, according to their environment and their socioeconomic setup. So ultimately, everybody is just kind of organically growing. There is no inherent wisdom underneath this all. It's just time dependent. At a particular time and moment, it was great and they flourished. And then when those ideas became out of date, they diminished. I just want to kind of get you guys to kind of reflect on that comment. And is there anything timeless about this? And if there is, what happened in Europe and what happened in South America with this timeless wisdom? Why has it become so peripheral rather than in the center? So Jonathan, do you want to go first, maybe?
Yeah, of course. I mean, so there's a sense of why the timeless wisdom has become peripheral. I mean, obviously, we're dealing in Europe with a landscape which has been characterized by the spread of Christianity over 2,000 years. And the thing that has characterized many forms of Christianity over that time has been various forms of intolerance for other ideas and other ways of seeing the world. That's not inherent to Christianity by any means. There are many tolerant Christians, and indeed many of the people who have transmitted the ideas that now form the essence of Druidic practice today were Christians and followed within that tradition as well. But the way they defined what was inside and outside varied relative to what certain other Christians might think. So many of these ideas have been passed on by Christians, but there is still this kind of, a lot of them became, I guess, controversial in a way that they wouldn't be in, say, India. And
Could you give an example? Could you give an example? Like what kind of ideas became controversial for you?
So one was the idea that the landscape is full of spirits. The idea that there are many different spiritual agencies that represent different aspects of creation. That became very controversial. Many different rituals became very controversial if those rituals were not sanctioned by the church authorities. Things like certain kinds of sexual relationships became very controversial and very fraught. Certain kinds of representative art became very controversial. So essentially, and it varies around, but generally speaking.
Jonathan, you seem to be hinting towards, and correct me if I'm putting words in your mouth, but you're suggesting almost that somehow the elders, the ancient times, had a more plural outlook in how they experienced nature and how they experienced themselves. And what you're effectively saying is then with the kind of spread and the hegemony of the church, that plurality was lost into some sort of singular notion of... Right.
I think probably the key word is authority, right? If you identify something as a singular authority that can determine what is and is not okay, that empowers small groups of people to essentially dictate that to others. And I think so. It may well have been the case that in ancient, I mean, we don't really know. We don't have written records written by practicing pre-Christian Druids. We don't really know what people at that time were thinking in terms of nature spirituality in their own words. So even though they may have had their own opinions about what was right and what was wrong, they didn't see it as necessarily being their responsibility to they didn't see themselves as having a divinely sanctioned responsibility to restrict what other people did and said. There was much more of a spirit of acknowledging difference and accepting difference, I think it's fair to say. And they didn't have that sense of authority. Whereas I think within many, as soon as you start to sort of evolve towards a very authoritarian spiritual mindset, regardless of what the actual ideology is, that's when you start to see these sorts of certain things that are deemed to be distant from what that authoritarian mindset would sanction start to become marginalized.
Yeah, no, understood. Adriana, same sort of question for you. Why is it that how is it that the wisdom of the elders has become so peripheral, so almost forgotten, right? Like it's not mainstream society anymore. At least I don't think it is. Correct me if I'm wrong. Why do you think that is? What happened?
Well, many reasons. I think that we just lost the north of the purpose of our lives and why we're here for and why we inhabit in the territories where we live. Like, of course, there's a clear disconnection that we started to experience with nature, with our surroundings, and so that distance it's like we're blind, because the closer we are with the other living beings, the closer we understand why we're here and how we can cooperate better with all of them. And so why did that happen? I don't know. I mean, I guess that's something that we needed to live, and I'm not going to blame that circumstance where we are right now, because we are here and we are blessed, and we have our families, and the water is still there, and the mountains and the landscape. We're blessed. We just need to learn from what Mother Earth is teaching us right now, and since last year as well, and yeah, this is the moment for us to realign ourselves, and yeah, there's so much to do, and Mother Earth is giving us the chance. And so the possibility now, I would say, is to exchange the little knowledge that we still have from all our territories, because there's so much knowledge, especially in the techniques from our different cultures, ancient cultures. There's certain techniques around food, around how to build our houses, how to, all these little daily activities that we need as humans. We need to exchange that knowledge, because we need to remember how we can be sustainable, self-sustainable, and that's something that we as these generations we don't have that knowledge anymore. So this is the challenge, and this is also the motivation right now, and I think that's why also all these activities and practices and experiences are starting to be popular again. And it's for the good of all. Yeah.
I just want to come in directly there and just say I completely agree with Adriana, and in fact the one thing I was probably going to continue on to say is that the thing that kept many of our ancient traditions going in Europe for the longest time was that kind of immediate connection with a particular landscape, and a particular kind of like living close to the earth was something which empowered our fairy tales, our stories, our relationships with fairy beings. All of those things arose from the land, and when you really started to see them decline was actually from the 19th century into the 1950s, where people decided that they didn't want to be connected with the land anymore. That was what poor people did. Instead, they wanted to buy dishwashers, and they wanted to buy, all these mod cons that they'd imported from abroad that were symptomatic with a better life. But my grandmother was was very much a member of that generation, and so she can't remember any of the wisdom that she was brought up with as a kid, because she just totally bought into a ideology that was separated from the land that she grew up on. And I think getting back to that is critical.
Wow, that's really fascinating, right? Because that's very recent, Jonathan, right? You're talking about sort of 1950s.
Yeah,
but it's so recent. And I wonder if Asia is going through that kind of change, that rapid change now.
So one of the things that about, like, I guess, consumerism and a consumer culture is it all hinges on this kind of this image of a better life, right? You know, like soap operas are often sort of sold around the world, and people see these kind of glamorous images of how the rich live, and everybody wants that, right? People see that and think, wow, you know, life is going to be so much easier and so much better. And in many ways, it does become easier. Like, and I don't think we should try and stop people from getting access to that. But I think what really becomes harmful is where that, because it's never just what's presented is never just a better lifestyle where drudgery is gone. What is also presented is a particular type of aesthetic, a particular type of set of values, a particular set of ideas, and a particular culture, and it's essentially it's a culture which is distant from the earth, and that's by design. Often, a lot of the people who come up with those ideas want people to be separated from these life-fulfilling traditions because it means that they're more likely to buy more stuff. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it kind of drives the consumption economy. Right? So, yeah, no, absolutely. I can value and understand everything that you said there. I suppose I'm just conscious of time, and what I want to get both of you to reflect on, if I may, is what would be your message to our brothers and sisters who are in Indonesia, in New Zealand, in Australia, in India, you know, Nepal, Bhutan, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam, all these places people are right now listening to us. What would be kind of your message, and from your experience, you know, just in the sense of, I suppose, you know, the things that we as ancient traditions ought to kind of learn from each other and contact one another, to stay in that touch, because together we are stronger, right? And that plurality. So I just wondering, you know, what would be your kind of key messages to our listeners, especially from the experience that we've had in Europe and we've had in Colombia. So Adriana, do you want to go first? Like, what would be the key message you'd like to give to our audience?
Yeah, I think that the core problems that we are facing in each territory are quite similar, which means that this opportunity of gathering or exchanging and connecting to others has a lot to do with sharing how we are dealing with all these problems locally. What are the things that we are doing in order to give a solution to that certain problem? So I think right now we're in that circumstance. And so the message for me is that one, like, there's things happening in many places in the world, many places, and good examples of people really trying to bring up solutions in a very, very creative way as well, and unique way. So I think in that sense, I feel that the message for us to inspire each other. There is so much that is going on in our territories, and we now have these platforms, these now virtual platforms to share, to exchange. And so I think in that sense, we are very rich at the moment. And so what we need to do is to identify those local experiences and examples, successful examples that are happening around us, and learn from them and help them to get stronger, and try to see how this experience can help, you know, some other community in any other location. So I think that's my message. Very practical one.
Lovely. No, thank you so much for that. No, I like that. I think that's nice. Jonathan, anything from the British Isles?
course. So firstly, it's a sort of a message of solidarity. I think, you know, there are so many people in Britain who, you know, despite our modern lifestyles, you know, and we still have so much love and affection for ancient wisdom. And I also want to sort of make a sort of message and be, in a way, I'm living in a society which is, to some respect, like further down the line of the disappearance of these forms of ancient wisdom. And I'm having to live in the reality of that. I'm having to live through that absence, and I have to live with that loss every day. And it's very alienating and very sad. So in a way, I would say that they, you know, I would say, you know, take heart, hang on, keep your traditions alive, because even if your current children or grandchildren are not interested, remember my experience with my grandmother, right? I'm only 2 generations after her. You know, if her grandparents were looking at her being like, my God, she's not interested in any of our old stories, then they would think it would end with her, but it didn't. I'm here, right? And I think just the period where people become captured by the alternative to embedding in these ancient wisdoms is actually very brief, right? So don't if your children and your grandchildren aren't listening, still keep the message going and keep it for your great grandchildren, because they will see its value. They will know, because they will live through its absence.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful, Jonathan and Adriana. So, guys, look, I'm conscious of time. I think we've come to the end of our time. Really enjoyed that conversation, and I think it will give a very different perspective to our listeners in this part of the world as to what's happening in the other side of the world, literally. And I think there's a message of hope there, right? That actually, you know, we can learn the idea of localism, right? It's right in front of us sometimes. And how do we absorb that? How do we inculcate that in our lives? And Jonathan, your message absolutely spot on, right? I couldn't agree more with you. I think a lot of people will resonate with that message everywhere. So I hope all of you have found this 45-minute exchange interesting, something different to contemplate and mull over. And I hope we have given you a small snippet as to the kind of activities and the kind of resurgence that is happening in other parts of the world when it comes to the ancient traditions. So I will sign out now. My name is Sachin Nanda at the ICCS conference. Namaste.
Namaste. It has been a great day for us, and I could see people all around the globe are watching what is happening among us today. And we had a wonderful beginning with Manya Somitraji giving us the entire discourse, which was carried on very well by Sachinji and team from 3 continents. So with these words, I am just now going to come to the area where we talk about the next presentation. We do have now the presentation to come up with the group called Yazidis. Yazidis, known as Yazidi also, and Yazidi. They have been in the limelight for last 8 years, especially since the massive genocide which they had to experience in Iraq, northern Iraq especially. Yazidis are one of the most ancient traditions in the context of Gulf area. You can find that they are genetically related to Upper Mesopotamia civilization, which had a regular link via Sumeria with India in Indus Valley days, Hindu-Saraswati area. So this is a very old connection we have. And Yazidis now, who were about 16 million in the population in earlier 20th century. The last time which we have the calculation available is they have only 1.5 million left in this world. Out of that, 500,000 still survive in Iraq. because they have a quarrel with Kurdish. Kurdish says that they are not Kurdish enough to be there. And rest of 1 million are spread in many countries. In Armenia, in Germany, and also in other parts of Spain and all they live. Today, among the speakers, we have Mr. Khader Hajoyan. He is just today elected as president of the community in exile, and he's at the moment preparing his anointation for tomorrow's getting this position. So first of all, we congratulate him for being the president of the Yazidis communities in Armenia. And he is going to talk about the basic principles of the crisis, what we have seen in the life of Yazidi. His brief talk is followed by a presentation by Miss Elaine Khachaturova. Miss Elaine is a person who is representative of the Yazidi National Union, and she would be giving her message along with that, because you know in Yazidis the greatest crisis has been with female folks. Welcome to Mr. Khader coming to us to speak on behalf of Yazidis.
Hello dears, so I am Khedr Hajoyan, the acting president of the Yazidi National Union. Today the Yazidi people celebrating his one of the big holidays related to the holy Khedr Nabi Khedr Elias. So for the first I want to congratulate to the all Yazidi people on his great day. And again, also said that, of course, unfortunately, we lost one of the big Yazidi leaders, like Aziz Amar Tamoyan, who is the president of the Yazidi National Union, also the leader of the Yazidis. And they live in Armenia. So 1 month ago, he died, he left us, but his soul with us, also with his people. So today the Yazidi people have many problems related to his development, also of culture. How you know that from the 2014 Yazidi people had been subjected to the genocide by ISIS. So till now the genocide are continuing, and we have more than thousands of Yazidi in captivity. So in captivity, our girls who are till now under the hands of terrorists. So also we call to the international community to stand with us, with the Yazidi people, to save our people. We have more than thousands, hundreds of thousands of Yazidis who are in their homeland, especially as a refugee. So they left their homeland. Now many Yazidis now want to come back to the Sinjar region, which one is the Yazidi oldest homeland, of course, main homeland. And of course many of actions doing against Yazidi people that because they didn't want that Yazidis come back to their homes again, because the Yazidis are, as one of the oldest nations, want to represent them as an ethnicity. Also, we hope that the world will stand with us and will support Yazidis to represent them as an ethnicity, also as one of the oldest ethnic peoples who are just want the peace. We didn't hate any peoples, any ethnicities, any nations. We just want the peace for this world. So in our religion, the Yazidi people, when praying, we say, the God, please, save the 72 peoples. Of course, at that time, maybe that peoples are living in this earth. So, God, please, give your support to also give the peace to the all humanity, all the peoples. After that, only give it to us. Because if the world will be in the peace, we also would be the part of that peace. So my voice, like I want to share to all of you that really support the Yazidi people. We have a really also my best regards to our brothers, Hindu brothers, of course. We have a very similarities in cultural level, also in religion. We really can strengthen our brotherhood. Of course, also I want to really thank to all of you that create this like platform to represent also the Yazidis, one of the ancient nations, and really for us, we hope that you will stand with us. We want to represent us because how many stereotypes created against Yazidis, and we today hope that international community stand with us, also recognize the Yazidi genocide.
During 2014 genocide, women's rights were violated. Women were subjected to various forms of violence, and the number of suicides of Yazidi women in Iraq is recently increased. Today, under globalization, the Yazidi people face a number of challenges, which are the issue of preserving the language, the issue of preserving cultural futures. It should be noted that the Yazidi people are fighting to replace the misinformation against them in the world with the truth. One of the primary problems is the participation of Yazidi girls in public life among young people, especially in Armenia, as well as their educational problem, as they don't receive an education due to early marriage, for which, by the way, the Yazidi National Union works. Today, I would like you to support one of the oldest nations in the world, the Yazidis, who have their homeland but do not have their statehood. They need protection and support. Thank you.
Thank you so much, our Yazdi family. And with crisis of Yazidis, we feel very low. What is still happening in the hands of certain groups of people who are hating our own relatives in this part of the world. Now it is time for hearing a very special address by Professor Dr. Sachidanand Joshi. Professor Sachidanand Joshi is going to speak on the subject, the nature and its connect to the Indian culture. Professor Sachidanand Joshi is at present Member Secretary, Indira Gandhi National Center for the Arts, IGNCA. He had a very illustrious career as a journalist, public communications, and he has been in great deal deeply involved in academia by being one of the youngest registrar in one university of communication. And then later on, at a very young age of 42, he became vice chancellor of the same university. Professor Joshi has, to his credit, many books written on the subject of life and issues of society, and he has written certain poetry also. Professor Sachidanand Joshi is a versatile writer, as I just said, and Professor Joshi has been looking after traditional arts and subjects which are known in India, especially in northeastern India, how to preserve them, how to retain them by organizing workshops and training camps. This is a very brief description of Professor Sachidanand Joshi, and I invite him now to come and deliver his main address of the day. Professor Joshi.
असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा amrutam gamaya. Namaskar. I feel privileged to be invited as a speaker in the 7th International Conference and perhaps the first virtual international conference organized by ICCS Bharat, ICCS USA and ICCS UK. Today, I would be talking to you on the subject nature and its connect with culture. And let me admit that I am not a scholar of this subject, so you should not expect an erudite lecture from me. I am a student of communication and a practitioner. Whatever I see, whatever I observe, I would like to present that in front of you. Hope you find it useful. Hope you find it worth listening. When I was young and I was going to the Saraswati Shishu Mandir in my primary class, we were taught the Pratah Smaran, the morning prayers, and that starts as Karagre Vasate Lakshmi, Karamadhe Saraswati, Karamulet Govinda, Prabhate Kara Darshanam, Samudra Vasane Devi, Parvatas Tanamandale, Vishnu Patni Namastubhyam Padas Parsham Kshamaswame. That means before stepping onto the earth, we would seek the permission from the Mother Earth and pray that let my day go in a happiness and harmony. And Mother Earth, give me permission to step on you. That was the relation which was taught to us in our early childhood. And that is how my first connect started developing with the nature, with the Mother Earth. When I grew a little old and started going to another school, I was taught about the family and the society. And it was in a metropolitan town. So the concept of city and the concept of society, which was taught to me in my earlier primary school, had a difference with the concept which was being taught to me in this middle school. And when I asked about this to my father, he told me that our concept of kutumba, our concept of family is different from the concept of society which is being taught and which is prevailed in other countries, especially the Europe. Because in our concept we say, Ayam nijo pareveti ganana lagu chetasam udar charitanam tu vasudhaiva kutumbakam. This is mine, this is yours. All these are the feelings, all these are thoughts of the people who have narrow mind. People who have large heart think that the entire universe is my family. And when I say the entire universe, it does not mean that me and my relatives, me and my close ones. When I say family, it means the entire surroundings, the flora and fauna, the animals, the species, the nature, the river, the mountain, and everything. And that is what comprises the kutumb in our concept. So the concept of holistic kutumb was developed in our earlier childhood. It came from our Shastriya traditions. It came from our culture. So we had some kind of relationship with the trees, with the plants, with the animals who always remain all around us. We never thought that we are the masters and they are somebody who are working in our possession. That gives a feeling of coexistence, coherentness with the nature, with the Mother Nature, with Earth. When I became little older, Yagyopavit was performed on me. We know Yagyopavit is one of the important samskars of solar sanskars. And let me clarify that this is not only a Brahminical tradition, but it is prevalent in all castes in India. Because it is not something related to Shastra, but it is something related to the humanity. So the Yagyopavit or the Upanayan was performed on me. And then I realized that what is the ritual which was performed on me or performed by me was related to nature only. Because there my priest, my guru taught me what was the connect of the person with the five elements, the pancha tattvas, the pancha mahabhutas. And these five elements, which starts from the akash, that is space, vayu, that is quark, agni, that is energy of fire, jal, that is water, and prithvi, that is matter. And when we perform any ritual or perform any prayer, we initially invite all these five elements to remain present there. Not only that, we invite all the deities and all the stars. And we establish navagrahas there when we begin any ritual or any prayer. So that also gives me the connect, that also gives me the feeling of connectivity with this entire universe, with this entire Mother Earth. And then it also gives me a feeling that I am only a part of this ecosystem because my body is made of all these five elements. All these five elements comprise in my own body also. And that is why if I am the part of this ecosystem, I am not the master of this ecosystem, I am only a small particle, but an important particle of this entire system. That also gives me a feeling, a sense of belongingness, a sense of responsibility, a sense of association with this nature. In my Yajnapavid, I was also taught the Gayatri mantra, and that states as Om Bhur Bhuvat Swaha, Om Tat Savitur Varenyam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yonah Prachodayat. This is the mantra which gives me immense energy. This is the mantra which gives me immense moral boost up. This is the mantra which gives me immense confidence to survive on this earth, not only survive, to live happily on this earth. If we try to translate it, it goes like, O Divine Mother, our heads are filled with darkness. Please make this darkness distant from us and illuminate us. And if I go deeper into the meaning of this, if I go a little deeper and realize what is the sense and what is the connect of this important mantra with myself and with the Mother, I come to know that the deeper meaning of this is, O thou existence absolute, creator of these dimensions, we contemplate upon thy divine light. May he stimulate our intellect and bestow upon us the true knowledge. And what is the true knowledge? And what is the essence? The true knowledge is the sense of my existence along with this earth, along with the Creator, along with the nature. And that kind of relationship is being taught when the Yajnapavid or the Upanayan is being performed on a child. That also gives me the sense of responsibility, because people think that now you are grown up enough to understand the responsibility of taking care of this Mother Earth. And when this happens, and when this sense of responsibility is given to us, then I realized what is the essence of my existence, my prana. Because when I was asked to perform Naivedya, before taking food, priest recited a very nice mantra. He says, Om Pranaya Swaha, Om Apanaya Swaha, Om Vyanaya Swaha, Om Udanaya Swaha, Om Samanaya Swaha, Om Brahmane Swaha. And when I asked about the essence, when I asked about the meaning of this mantra, he said that our body is constituted with Pancha Prana, 5 pranas, that is Prana, Apana, Vyana, Udana, and Samana. So these 5 pranas constitute my body's existence. And all these denote different parts of my bodies, different elements of my body. So we do not eat simply to only satisfy our hunger or to entertain my taste buds. We also eat to energize my body, which is the part of an entire universe element and entire source of energy. So when I am feeding myself, I am also contributing towards this divine energy which is regulating the entire earth or entire universe. If I eat with that feeling, then only I realize that even eating is an important divine part of my life. And once we realize this, then we can move ahead with the feeling that I am also part of this ecosystem which gradually developing me into an important person who is playing a major role in creating this eternity. So that kind of feeling which is developed, and when I realize that how my prana works. So prana works to control nose up to the heart, apan controls my navel to the feet, saman controls my heart to navel, udan controls my throat to head, and vyan controls our entire nervous systems. There are also 5 upapranas which assist the pranas. They are known as Naga, Kurma, Krukama, Devadatta and Dhananjaya. But when we realized how these pancha pranas are related to the elements of energy, we get a very fantastic combination. Because the elements of energy like heat, light, magnetic field, electricity and sound are also somehow related to my pancha pranas. So these are 5 elements of energies, and there are 5 elements of pancha pranas which some kind of a co-relation with them, and that is how the energy is created on this entire earth. It is a fantastic example. Let us all pray for everyone's well-being. So even when we take food, we do not think of only ourselves, but we also think of each and every one available on this universe. But interestingly, when I grew a little older and when I sort of became young, I was also asked to face the competition of life. And when it comes to competition of life, the element of professionalism also entered into my life. And when then professionalism entered, someone told me that you should follow the principle of survival of the fittest. In a competition, survival of the fittest is all right. But if it generates enmity, if it generates cruelty, if it generates inhuman attitude in me, then how does it help? Then I started thinking, is there something wrong in me? Or is there something wrong in my teaching? And I realized that my guru taught me, Om Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinah, Sarve Santu Niramaya, Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu, Ma Kashit Dukkha Bhag Bhavet. May all be happy, may all be free from illness, may all see what is auspicious, may no one suffer. If I am taught this, how it correlates with the survival of the fittest principle, then I started introspecting and I thought that whatever my culture has taught, whatever my tradition has taught, whatever my elders have taught is the right principle of life. And I must follow that because that is corresponding to the nature, that is corresponding to the natural way of living the life. Because my culture taught me how to live and what to eat in different weather conditions. Because my culture taught me what is to be offered to the deity in a particular festival, according to the weather, according to the crop, according to the agriculture pattern. Because my culture taught me the significance of haldi and kumkum being offered to the deities. Because my culture taught me to realize what is the importance of offering rice, that is akshat, to the deities. And how does it help in playing an important role in conserving the natural traditions. Because my culture taught me what is the ecosystem of the entire energy. Because my culture taught me to understand the natural food chain, the natural water supply chain, the natural energy supply chain. Everything has been imbibed in my culture and everything was given in my culture. Unfortunately, putting all that aside, I fell into the trap of some different kind of knowledge which tried to make me more inhuman, more irrational, and more cruel. There is a saying in our Sanskrit tradition, Prithviyam Trini Ratnani Jalamannanam Subhashitam Mudhe Pashana Khandeshu Ratna Sangya Pradiyate. There are three jewels on earth, that is water, food, and adages. Fools, however, regard pieces of rocks as jewels. It has been said that we must acknowledge the strength of our Mother Nature and we must correspond our life with that nature. If we do that, we would lead our life with happiness and success. But if you try to destroy, but if we try to damage the balance of that nature, the price we have to pay is innumerable. We have realized during this COVID pandemic how our natural way of living sailed us through these difficult times. That is why the tradition of Bharat was acknowledged globally. Everyone realized that the Bharatiya way of living is the way which would sail us through with effortless ease and comfort. If we don't realize that, we are going to fall into a trap. We are going to fall into a place which would create an irreparable loss to the humanity. Even when we complete our prayer, even when we finish our prayer, we do not only seek blessings for ourselves, we seek blessings for each and everyone. Om Dev Shanti, Antariksha Shanti, Prithvihi Shanti, Rapa Shanti, Radheya Shanti, Vanaspataya Shanti, Vishwer Deva Shanti, Brahma Shanti, Sarva Shanti, Shanti Deva Shanti, Sama Shanti Dedhi, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Let there be balance in the space, let there be balance in the sky, let there be peace on the earth, let there be calmness, let there be growth in the plants, let there be growth in the tree, let there be grace in the gods, let there be bliss in the Brahman, let there be balance in everything, let there be peace, peace, and peace. I think if we follow these natural principles, if we follow the call of our culture, I think we would be better human being, we would be responsible human being. I know I am an important and integral part of this nature, but I must also realize that I am a responsible part of this nature. Friends, I have tried just to stimulate your thought and divert your attention on these important aspects. I don't know how far I have been successful. This is for you to decide. I must thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity of sharing my thought on this issue, on this important platform. Namaskar.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sachinandanji Joshi. That was a very insightful speech you've just given. We are going to be taking a little bit of a break now. So if you want to stretch your legs, grab a cup of coffee, tea, and we should be back in the next 3 to 4 minutes. Namaste. Next, we have Bala Sundariji, who is going to be giving our next talk. She's originally from Andhra, which is in India, and is currently settled in Singapore. She's retired as a senior IT professional. She's a periodic volunteer in spiritual and social cultural organizations in Singapore. She has extensively traveled all across Asian countries and has keen interests in philosophy and history of ancient civilizations and linguistics. Over to you, Bala Sundariji.
My dear brothers and sisters, assembled together to share their thoughts about ancient cultures championing humanity, organized by the reputed International Center for Cultural Studies. Let me wish you in the ASEAN languages, which I will be touching today. Sawadee Dutong, Thai, Selamat Pagi, Indonesia, Malaysia, Aru Susti, Swasti, Cambodia, Mainglar, Mana, Kaitana, Burma, Wawo, Sang Toila, Vietnam, and finally, Salamat or Salam in Arabic, and Suswagatam and Suprabhatam in Sanskrit. The Southeast Asia Conglomeration or Association is formed in 1967 after all these 11 nations became independent from their colonizers after 1945. Malaya, Malaysia, Maharika, Philippines, Simhapura, Singapore, Barunai from Varun, Brunei Darussalam, Viet Dai from Vietnam, and Langzang, Laos, Brahmadesha or Burma, Myanmar, and Siam or Siam, Thailand. The historical and heritage or cultural heritage of these countries is greatly influenced by China and India, as they exist south of China, Japan and Korea, and to the east of India, both in languages, customs and practices, and even their languages are greatly influenced and intermixture of Sino-Tibetan, Thai, Asiatic, Malay-Polynesian and Indo-Aryan and Dravidian, and naturally Han and Mongolian and Han Chinese Mandarin. Later, there is an influence of colonizers' language, English, French, Portuguese, and Spanish, Dutch. The religions of these countries, they had their own excellent ways of worship, and I would never call ancient practices as pagan and tribal. It is like underrating their worth. It was these tribal and pagan religions worshipping nature and its different forces as gods have protected the environment for thousands of years until we began destroying nature recently with our industrialization and so-called modernization. So it is an intermingling of their local practices, customs, habits, food habits, dresses, family culture, everything, and also influenced by Buddhism, Mahayana Buddhism, which became Theravada Buddhism, and in Japan it became Zen Buddhism, Confucianism from China, and the greatest of all, the Taoist principles of Lao Tzu, and the Sanatana Dharma or Hinduism, much later Christianity and Islam. So these countries are a harmonious synthesis and integration of all religions of the world, all languages of the world, and all cultures of the world. You would see that Indonesia, which is not a Hindu country, but Ramayana is played in their own customs and language in Prambanan near Yogyakarta, and in Thailand, which is a Buddhist country, we have tremendous cultural intermixtures. Ayutthaya, in Ayutthaya. Then we have the famous Cambodian Angkor Wat. It's an ancient historical masterpiece with Hindu and Buddhist and a lot of local culture, local architecture, local sculpture, local practices. The dresses that these god deities are made to wear are absolutely local Indonesian and Cambodian and Malaysian and much more than that. Let us now speak about their beliefs and their customs and habits. They are very joint family type, all these cultures. Patriarchal mostly, and except in some places they're matriarchal. And family values are the highest. You would have heard of the influence of Confucius, family at the high, filial duties, parental duties, siblings duties, and everything is given the maximum importance. When a family is happy, the community is happy, and the group is happy, and the nation is happy, and one nation is contented and harmonious, their interpersonal relation with the neighboring nations also will be very harmonious. And this is the culture of Southeast Asia, most admirable. It is like a museum of the Asian cultures, all Asian cultures in one place. And influence from the Arab nations, the Islam came there, and they have taken the best of everything. They have taken the best of Buddhism, the best of Islam, the best of Christianity, retained their ancient cultures and customs, and made it their own. I am fascinated extremely by the Southeast Asian culture. Their literature, art, architecture, everything is a synthesis of several cultures. And a new culture would not destroy the old culture, but it gets customized and interfaced and intermingled with the existing culture. You would find dances dating back to 2,000, 3,000 years old in Malaysia and Indonesia and in Thailand and Burma, and yet equally modern and developed. The festivals that are celebrated in Thailand, Songkran, Dragon Boat Festival in Laos, Thatlung Festival in Vietnam, Chinese New Year and Holy Ghost Festival wherever the Chinese are inhabited in Malaysia or Indonesia. And lastly, a festival that is almost obsolete in India, South India, Thaipusam, is celebrated in Malaysia and Singapore. And when I visited this, I wondered at the way the culture is being followed in the festivals. Every festival calls for family unity, meeting friends. It is a socio-cultural harmony. Festivals are not just for worshipping of deities. They are for ulterior noble ideals. Now, let us see, one more point is that I would like to say is that being a resident of Singapore and having seen the place extremely and all my family is belonging there, I would like to share something great about this great nation which became rags to riches. Before 1965, Lee Kuan Yew wrote a book called Lee Kuan Yew wrote a book called Rags to Riches, and it became a nation in 1963 with Malaysia, then an independent nation in 65. And the aim of this country, this city-state, small city-state of only, 5 to 6 million people, all migrants across Asia, even from other countries, they maintain religious harmony, a mosque, a church, a Taoist temple, a Buddhist temple, and everything else, a place of worship exists side by side, and people visit one another. And the greatest culture that came out with intermingling is the Peranakan culture of Malay people, Indonesians intermarrying with the Chinese, and they created a new culture called Peranakan culture. And the Asia Civilization Museum of Singapore depicts all the cultural heritage from the most ancient culture of this Southeast Asia to the most modern. Technological advancements have not killed the culture of Southeast Asia. They are simultaneously developing and advancing economically, commercially, technically, and at retaining the culture. Let us learn something from this small city-state called Singapore for world unity and world peace. When a small city-state can exist, we too can coexist with harmony and respect one another's culture. Thank you very much. And I hope I'm not able to convey anything much about each culture, but please visit Southeast Asia and go to the museums of the culture there, and you would feel a great inspiration to respect one another and live together happily. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that, Bala Sundariji. There's been a lot of information given us and a lot of takeaway for all of us. That was wonderful. Next, we have Professor Ketut Ardhana from Indonesia. Professor Ketut teaches history at Southeast Asian Studies and philosophy of sciences at Faculty in Arts of Udayana University. He's the chair of Vidya Kirti Foundation, which is a Hindu University of Indonesia as well. So over to you, Professor Ardhana.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Today is a great day for me, and it's also a great pleasure for me in this time to present my paper on Balinese tradition and its contribution to the global society by wisdom and tradition. First of all, I would like to introduce myself. I'm Ketut Ardhana from the Hindu University of Indonesia, or UNHI, which is located in Denpasar, Bali, Indonesia. In this topic of Balinese tradition and its contribution, I would like to say that there are not many studies on this issue. As we already know that Bali is located in the equator, and there are two big places, or India or China already influenced strongly the Balinese culture. However, in compared to the Indian or Indic culture, the Chinese culture has influenced not so strongly if you look at the influence of Indian or Indic culture in the first of century. So I would like to mention here that there are some point of view, and I would like to say that there are certain issues, even though we know that the Balinese culture has its own local culture, but in fact, the global culture, or in other words, the external culture, has also played a major role in forming, in creating the modern Balinese culture. Through this paper, I would like to mention or analyze first, what do we mean by the local culture or local Balinese traditions, and the second one, to what extent the external influence strongly influenced the Balinese culture, and the last one, and the meaning of this culture, in order to have a better understanding on how Balinese culture still exists until at the present time. So Bali is the one of the Indo-Mosaic in Southeast Asia, and we know that there are certain evidence from the archaeological and historical sites that can show us about the influence of Hindu in Indonesia in general, but also in Bali in particular. We see here that even though Hindu already spread in the first of century, but in fact the Indo or Indica influence by a strong in the 8th century. This can be seen at the archaeological or historical evidence that we can see now until at the present time. And this is Bali. If you can look at the Bali map, it seems to me that the Western influence is stronger than from the Eastern part, from Lombok. This can be seen from the classical Indonesian history, where East Java culture already strongly influenced the Balinese culture. That is the period in the Kediri period, where we know that the around 8th, 9th, 11th century, there was a big king, we call it Udayana. Udayana means the first and of the Balinese king who ruled Bali in terms of democratic ways. Udayana itself has his wife from East Java. Her name was Mahendra Datta from the Kediri kingdom. And if we talk about the tradition or Balinese tradition, where still exists until now, it seems that the influence of East Java culture, where the Mahendra Datta, or the wife of the Mahendra Datta, the wife of Udayana, who came to Bali and then strengthened the Balinese culture until now. Even though we know that there are some different perspectives on this development, where Mahendra Datta itself is supposed to be one of the Shivaism or Shiva streaming, or she is supposed to be prayed the Durga is wife from Shiva, and until now we see this in the province, in the district, one district in Bali, that is in Gianyar. Yeah, the next one, please. Yeah, this is some instances for the description or explanation about the local wisdom and Hinduism in Bali. Even though we know that there are some certain terms from the Balinese name that already transformed to Hindu names, like the name of the god, Kosika, Gargametri, Kurusya, Pratanyala, Chanting Kuning, become Hindu's name, Iswara, Brahma, Mahadewa, Vishnu, Shiva, and Uma. So this god, we already prayed for this god in certain Balinese Hindu ritual or festival in Bali that we can see not only in the city but also in the villages until now, until at this time. Yeah. So just look back to the Udayana king who ruled Bali in the 9th to 11th century, where the spread of Indian or Javanese Hindu culture already strongly influenced Bali, because the king of Udayana married the princess of East Java, is Mahendra Datta, and he has 3 sons. First one is Airlangga, who became the king in East Java, and the second one is Marakata, and the last one is Anak Wungsu. Anak Wungsu means the last sons. Airlangga himself ruled in East Java, and the second and the third sons ruled in Bali. Next one. So at the time of the Udayana king, who was very famous in Bali, we know about the foundation, the strong influence of the Balinese foundation, where at the time in the 9th to 10th, 11th century, there was a meeting in the temple. We call it Samuan Tiga. At this time, the King Udayana asked to have a meeting with the Shivaism or Hindu priest and also the Buddhist priest, where took place in the temple of Samuan Tiga. At the time, they introduced the concept of Bhinneka Tunggal Ika. Bhinneka Tunggal Ika means Tanhana Dharma Manggura. There's no differentiation, but the important thing is the union, the integration, the unity. Bhinneka Tunggal Ika became famous because at the time the priest and the king also successfully integrated the concept of unity and diversity. Since the time, we know that this concept, this motto is very familiar for the Balinese in particular, and also for the Indonesian people in general. The reason was that in the time of Sukarno, as the first president of the Republic of Indonesia, he also take this concept to be a national motto we know now as Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, and the national symbol of Pancasila as the five basic principles of the Indonesian ideologies. The first one is a belief in God. Second one, humanity. Third one is integration. The fourth is democracy, and the last one is social justice. Next one. Yeah, this is the temple of Samantiga, where coming from the Balinese word meaning the meeting of the three factions between Hinduism, Shaivism, and Buddhism. And from this explanation or this analysis, we can know that the different local belief, not only from the local but also from other region, that can be united in Bali. So the idea of multiculturalism is important for us to understand that Bali give some contribution to have a better understanding on how the Balinese culture, on how the Balinese people practice their own way on the idea of multiculturalism. This is very important in order to be able to live in harmony and peaceful way, in order to be able to anticipate any foreign or any globalized influence in the Balinese culture. Next one, please. So Bhinneka Tunggal Ika Tanhana Dharma Mangua, until now we use as the national symbol for unity and diversity. Yeah, this is we can see from our local manuscript, from our local tradition, that we also know here that there are so many influence of the Indian or any culture in order to informing the Balinese modern culture. And until now, this Balinese culture already contributed to the national or Indonesian modern culture. This one. And this is the temple of Samantiga, as I already mentioned before, where the Shiva and Buddha as unity. The next one, please. Okay. Until now, we practice this ideology where not only from Hindu or Buddhism or Hinayana and Mahayana, but also in the context of on how we can live side by side by other ethnic group, by other religion like Muslim, Catholic, Christian, and also Confucianism can live side by side in Bali in peaceful and harmonic way. Yeah, this is the Pancasila, where I mentioned about the five basic of Indonesia or national ideology for the Indonesian people in order to be able to integrate themselves in one unity, in one nation, states in Indonesia. Yeah. The second contribution from the Balinese culture is the Nyepi Day. Nyepi Day is the day of silence, where the Balinese celebrate this day of silence once in a year. Then this idea of a day of silence can also contribute the modern culture of the Balinese culture, where not only from the tradition but also for the modern time. And then Nyepi or day of silence, the Balinese stay at home, is not allowed to go out because a market, airport, harbor also already closed. And in this time, in the Nyepi Silent Day, there was some official, the Balinese traditional official, we call it pecalang, who control the situation outside their houses, their household. Yeah. Yeah, we can see here that the Balinese pecalang, they can work together with other ethnic group like the Muslim. We can see in this picture on how if the Muslim would like to pray in the mosque and in the same time with the celebration of the Nyepi Day or Day of Silence, they can communicate, and then the pecalang will accompany him to go to the mosque. This is very important to have a better understanding on how the Balinese pecalang can work together with the Muslim people, and then the situation or harmony can be created. Yeah. Yeah, and also the third one is about the idea of Trihita Karana. This concept is very famous, it's very popular in the context of on how the Balinese should maintain the sustainable life in which in this context or in this term Trihita Karana, meaning that there is a good relation between man and God, between man, and also between man and its nature, empowerment or ecological. Now, we can see this the best practice of this three or will view this subak irrigation system not only in terms of economic system but also in terms of the social religious context where the people can work together. We call it gotong royong, work together in order to get the maximum result on this activities in the traditional or rice field. That's one piece. Yeah, we can see this is some pictures on how the idea of Trihita Karana, where the Balinese should maintain their good atmosphere, and where the relationship between man and God, man, and also man and which its nature is very important in order to be able to have a good or the better or sustainable life with nature and also with God. Yeah. The last one is the concept of Astabrata, the perfect philosophy for leadership and theory, where this idea also we adopt from Indian or Indic culture. Astabrata means that we should have a good concept or strategy on how we can recruit leader to be able to manage the people in general, and also for the people in Bali, where the idea of Astabrata, the idea of Astabrata meaning its concept. For instance, the first one is like the god of Surya. The god of Surya, or because it's very famous in the Balinese culture, and so the Surya will shine not only for the poor people but also the rich people. They will shine all of the people. That is the concept of justice in the Balinese term. I think this is quite relevant in order to be able to compare between the Balinese concept of Astabrata and also the concept also we know also already practices in such a long time in India. I think that is my presentation on the idea of how the Balinese tradition can contribute to the global phenomena that we can see now until at the present time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ardhana, for that extremely insightful breakdown. There's a lot to learn, a lot to walk away from. So thank you very much. Next, we have from Philippines, Crisol Balgant Cantalino. He's going to be explaining the Baki Ritual, which originates from Philippines. He's a chief priest of the ancient tradition of Baki. He's a member and a ritualist of the Kalaguyan tribe. And also he's a researcher of culture and arts out there as well. Recently elected as president of the Education Skills and Training Institute. So looking forward to listening to him. Over to you, Crisol.
everyone. Namaste. Hope you guys are all doing well. My name is Crisol Balyagan Catalino from the Philippines. I belong to the Kalanguya tribe in the northern part of the Philippines in Cordillera Administrative Region. First of all, I'd like to greet everyone who are currently on board in this ICCS conference, to my fellow speakers, to all the participants around the world. I'm going to call you my relatives in the other part of the world. Of course, I'd like to especially mention and express my gratitude to the technical team of ICCS. Thank you for bearing with my videos. To my contact person, Miss Dishita, my bridge in this speakership, Professor Amarjiva Lochan, and I'd like to greet as well the president of ICCS, and of course the whole family of ICCS. Thank you for making this event a possible one. Despite of the pandemic that we're having right now, you made it still possible for all the practitioners to meet together and talk about humanity. Thank you so much for that. So, in the Philippines, humanity has been talked about over the years already. You know, it's been laid on the table for how many decades now, but looks like that the programs of the government ain't working. You know, the government have laid down programs. They had several plannings in addressing threats to humanity, but it looks like it's not working. And that's the very big question that they also have right now. That's the reason why our topic for today's conference is very timely. You know, we really have to talk about it in the aspect of ancient cultures. Well, we are considered as a small community in our own country, but personally, I believe that starting in our simple and the smallest part of the community will be very effective, because we cannot address the concerns that we have right now or the problems that we're facing if our family or the small community cannot do it. So, like what I'm saying, in the Philippines, we do have a lot of problems when we talk about of humanity. You know, we have threats on the environment, we have threats on economic, we have threats on the family or in the family. We have threats everywhere. You know, it's everywhere. Um, and like what I said, there were programs and activities planned by the government, but for years that I have spent my time in observing it, and my personal assessment concludes that it's not really working. And I hope they won't take it against me if I say that um, mm, the modern approach in addressing threats to humanity is not working. That's why I'm very thankful that we are all here, um, so that we can apply the ancient culture, our ancient tradition, see if it will work, which I believe will really work. Because in our tribe, in Kalanguya tribe, we have those practices. We have the culture to address the problems or the threats against humanity, and it's working. It's just that we really have to practice it more, you know, to nurture and go back to basics of our culture and do it well with the community. So what I'm going to share to you now is a it's an approach or it's a practice that we do in our tribe to sustain and maintain the family cohesiveness or the family bonding. Because, like what I said earlier, I personally believe that as a person, you cannot help change or help address the threat to humanity if you yourself in your family uh, cannot do it together. So that's what I'm going to show you right now. I have a separate video for this, and I'm going to show you. It will be played in just a second. Let's go, guys. There are important elements in conducting the ritual. As you can see, there is a blanket, there is a wine, and there are paper notes, of course, placed onto a native basket. That is aside from the native attire that I'm wearing during the ritual. So first part of the ritual is to call all the ancestors who are gone before me. I have to name them one by one because if I miss somebody, then it's going to be a failure of the ritual. Of course, I gotta call also the gods of the mountain, the river, and the sky to gather along with my ancestors. As a ritualist, it's our belief that if you are a ritualist with clean intention, then the forefathers and gods will really be gathered once you call them. So after they're gathered, that's a time that I tell them the wishes and pleas of a certain family. If they ask for blessings, for wisdom, for values, and for other things that they want to have, then that's the opportunity that I'm going to ask them to bestow it to the family who is asking for it, because we believe that our ancestors who are gone before us really established a family with a great integrity for humanity. Alrighty, so there you go. That's the video, or that's a ritual that we normally conduct to maintain family bonding. Thank you so much for watching it, and I hope you were able to at least learn one of the practices or cultural practices that we do in our tribe over here in the Philippines. Now, to my fellow speakers and my relatives who are currently on board, well, I'm looking forward to listening to your stories too, to whatever you will share, and I know it will be very helpful for me to apply it also in my community or in my tribe. Alrighty, so to my batch in 2018, I hope you guys are also on board. I hope I will see you. I will see you soon in a face-to-face conference, and I'm hoping that this pandemic will be gone, so that we can have a face-to-face conference together. Now, lastly, I would like to thank once again the ICCS family, the family as a whole, the ICCS president, the technical team, Dishita, thank you, Professor Lochan, thank you, and all the people who are behind the success of this conference. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Crisol, for that, and you're very welcome. It was lovely to finally get this clip from you and really to learn about the Baki culture from Philippines. So thank you so much for going through the effort and putting that together for us. And it was lovely to hear you kind of talk about the ritual side of it and the clips. Now, next we have Bisram Rambilasji. He is going to be giving the next speech. He has a PhD in Sanskrit. He's an ex-senior lecturer and head of department for Sanskrit from UDW University, founder and director of Westville Hindu Primary School as well, and he's currently engaged in African and Indian culture at the Ubuntu Dialogue, and delivers papers nationally and internationally in Sanskrit, Bhojpuri, and Hindi. So looking forward to hearing you. Over to you.
It is common practice and part of a rural village culture that mothers who toil on the fields take care of each other's newborn babes. While some tilled the soil, the others would pick the frail and crying babies who suckled from their weary breasts. Through the milk that quenched the thirst and hunger of the babies flowed the blood, sweat, and tears, the story of oppression and struggle that passed not only to the babe in the mother's bosom, but to the succeeding generations. It is in this hapless state that Mother India, holding her baby in her arms, says to Mama Africa in a voice and tone that only one mother speak to another.
Weighed down by this terrible agony of poverty, I place my baby in your arms. May this child grow and be nurtured on your earth. In this newfound home, may he learn to love his brothers, to play with them, sing his song, dance his dance, and tell his stories, both old and new. May he grow and prosper, and never forget the mother that was once his own. A mother who, weighed down by her anguish, was forced to abandon a part of her very own soul. Farewell, my child. May the new horizon you travel to bring you new joy and hope. May you prosper and be blessed always.
As a Hindu who is a descendant of Indian indentured laborers brought to South Africa 165 years ago by the British to work on the sugarcane fields of the province of Natal, now KwaZulu-Natal, I am deeply impressed with the African philosophy of Ubuntu. My family subscribed to the principles of the Arya Samaj, a reform movement that actively engaged in opposing the caste system, blind faith, and superstition as being extraneous to the original humanism that is expounded in the Vedas, the oldest extant literature of the Hindus. I find an inspirational resonance in the quest of the Arya Samaj to return to the roots of a universal humanity with that of Africa to redefine itself on its own terms according to a philosophy that is the very soul of Africa. Very much like India, Africa was subject to centuries of invasion where its people and its belief systems were sold into slavery by masters who saw it expedient to justify such a slavery by describing the natives of these lands as primitive, uncivilized, and uncultured beasts whose souls had to be saved. This took the form of conversions, which was presented as the saving grace of these pagans and heathens. It was not in the interests of such evangelistic crusades to extol the virtues of Ubuntu or a Hindu universalism because it ran against the design of colonialism. Converted natives would serve as more loyal subjects of an imperial master. Just as the Arya Samaj engaged rigorously in decolonizing Indo-logical and Oriental perceptions and interpretations by Western scholars, a similar trend can be seen in Africa, where African scholars are redefining the value systems as beliefs inherent in the worldviews of an indigenous native of Africa, rather than views imposed by scholars who are outsiders to these traditions. It is imperative then to study the meaning of Ubuntu, since it encapsulates everything African. The word Ubuntu is an Nguni Bantu term meaning humanity. It is often translated as I am because we are, or humanity towards others. But it is often used in a more philosophical sense to mean the belief in a universal bond of sharing that which connects all of humanity. Ubuntu in African philosophy also embraces the quality of being human. Ubuntu can be seen and felt in the spirit of a willing participation, unquestioning cooperation, warmth, openness, and personal dignity demonstrated by the indigenous African population. There are three moral values crucial to Ubuntu. Listed in social order, they are respect for human dignity, compassion, and justice. Of particular importance is the value of respect for human dignity as an intrinsic element of Ubuntu ethics. The Zulus say, Umuntu Ungumbuntu Ungabantu, which means that a person is a person through other persons. We affirm our humanity when we acknowledge that of others. The South African Nobel laureate Archbishop Desmond Tutu describes Ubuntu as the essence of being human. The Bantu languages are fairly closely related and have a unique feature in the harmonic concord. Indo-European languages and others too usually show gender difference, number, that is singular or plural, and agreement by means of suffixes. Bantu languages use prefixes and the harmonic concord. In almost all the Bantu languages, the root word for person or people is Ntu. Example, in Xhosa, a person is Umuntu, persons or people is Abantu. Colonialism and British imperialism both spread the belief that the natives of India and Africa were pagans and heathens, savages who worshipped devils and ancestors, practiced primitive rituals, and needed to be saved. As part of colonial religious subjugation, Christian evangelists, in the guise of saving the souls of the people they had subjugated, literally stole their souls, just as they did their lands and resources. They built schools through which they indoctrinated the locals by presenting a modern, civilized Christian way of life, which would save them from their barbaric ways and make them good Christians loyal to the colonial master. There were some true Christians who regretted this injustice, but still continued their evangelizing mission and even committed themselves to the liberation of Africa in the name of Christianity. While conversions took place at an alarming pace, there were those Hindus and Africans who tenaciously held on to their traditional beliefs. They persisted in the simple rites and rituals, often not knowing or understanding the philosophical rationale in which their practices were grounded. This persistence over time did prove to be a saving grace. As colonialism declined, there was the emergence of a more sympathetic approach to an understanding of Hindu and African worldviews and an appreciation of these cultures as an expression of a special bond shared with nature and creation. Thus, paganism was elevated from its satanic status to a more acceptable one, which indicated the veneration of nature. In some cases, it reached what may be considered an extreme trend, namely the popular hippie culture and the flower children cult of a not too distant past. There are several views on comparisons between the Hindu worldview and Ubuntu. Some African scholars argue that, based on the anthropological view of Africa being the cradle of evolution, the earliest view on religion and matters of the spirit logically lies in the initial speculations as presented in African thought. While it is very tempting to venture into a discussion on this issue, the premise for the view presented by these scholars is a very contentious one. It is based on the theory of evolution, which has serious racial connotations. Most African scholars prefer the name African religion for the belief systems that have their origins in the continent of Africa. In a book titled Afro-Hindu Cultural Affinity, published in Nagpur, India, credit is given to the World Hindu Conference held in Durban in July 1995 for the kindling of a renewed interest in this comparative study. The Center for Afro-Hindu Studies in Nagpur was a direct result of the World Hindu Conference. Similar centers exist at Mumbai and other universities. Thanks to modern technology, one can gain access to papers and publications on the subject. An important assertion arising out of these studies is that both the African and Hindu had to live in servitude for thousands of years, and their minds still, to a large extent, remain colonized. It therefore is imperative to decolonize the mind, to peel off the layers of interpretations that have been imposed on it, either through misunderstandings or deliberate distortions based on evangelical and other vested interests. A compelling outcome of these studies is the similarities that attract an irresistible urge to explore the underlying philosophies that evolve as parallels in the two belief systems. Both the African and Hindu belief systems are nature-based, steeped in a veneration for creation and the laws of the universe, with the reverence for the sun, wind, water, and earth, which had been maligned as a primitive pagan faith, a belief in the elements as polytheistic gods. Both cultures are steeped in oral traditions, folklore, and a kaleidoscope of religious festivals and celebrations. This presentation is an exposition of the rationale for a nature-based religion as found in the Vedas, the oldest extant literature of the Hindus, which serves as primary authority for the various facets of the religion, its philosophy and practice. In Africa, this worldview is more prominent as an oral tradition. An important dictum of the Vedas is Satyam Rita. The truth is indeed the law of the universe. Regardless of our race or belief, the laws of nature hold true for all of us. Based on this mantra, we can then say that the religion of the human race is nature, a contemplation of how creation and nature operates results in the realization of a grand mastery embodied in this universe, all governed by the laws of nature. If this is true, then each one of us is also a part of this all-embracing natural law. Everything is constituted of the elements, and ultimately everything resolves or dissolves into them. What we witness is our mortal existence, and the world around us is the continuous cycle of the elements being manifest and unmanifest in their various forms. This is explained in another Hindu philosophical text, the Gita or Bhagavad Gita, as Vyakta, possessing form, and Avyakta, formless. These elements then never die. They simply continuously exist in a state of flux, of being subtle and invisible and then assuming a form, a continuous sequence from the one state to the other. Some similarities in African and Indian thought. Nana Biekiewa of Ghana, champion of Pan-African unity and a revival of African religion, states God is our universal Father. For the Khans of Ghana, he is also our divine Mother, Ngame Obatan Pa. A very caring provider God is omnipotent, Gyaname, all-knowing, omnipresent, and sustainer of the whole world. In African cultures, religion permeates every aspect of life, from seed time to harvest, through the rites of passage, birth, puberty, marriage, death, and even the hereafter. All over Africa, the earth is the female spirit of Asase Ya, Mother Earth. Professor Mbiti, esteemed authority on African religion, holds that nature, birds and animals, the mountains and rivers, the stars and planets are not merely natural things for an African. There is a religious significance in all of these, in the pre-birth stage of man and his life and existence after death. Hence, each breath he inhales and exhales is in this omnipresent religious milieu. The omniscience of God is reiterated in the different parts of Africa. Among the Zulus, God is the wise one, whereas the knowledge of man is limited. Among the Khans, God is known as He who knows or sees all, and the Yorubas believe only God is wise. The deities of different order have been created by God. In their functioning, they stand for His activities or manifestations in the personified phenomena of nature. For the Ashanti tribe, the different deities known as Abosom act as intermediaries for God. Festivals are dedicated to major tribal divinities. Similarly, Banyaro deities are assigned specific functions. Ancestor worship is well known in the African tradition. Ancestors are venerated as spirits and also as custodians and protectors of their descendants. They are guardians of families, and as elders, they are the upholders of respect and order in the village, a striking resemblance to the Panchayat, a 5-member village council of rural India. Similarly, in marriages, there are folk songs that are sung to the extent that in both Indian and African wedding songs, the brides and grooms' parties taunt and tease each other. They are songs for birth and death and all the events that celebrate life. The Havan is a popular Hindu rite where a fire is lit and fragrant roots and herbs are offered as oblations into it. The fire receives these ingredients and transforms them into a scent which permeates the surrounding space, purifying it and making it pleasant. In the African tradition, Mpepo or Mpepo is the name of the herb and the name of the rite where a smoldering fire is kindled in an African clay pot. The fragrance that emanates is pleasing to the ancestors because of the act of purification. The lighting of incense is part of Indian and African practice, and such rites are popular among many world cultures. These need to be identified and promoted as rituals aimed at a reverence for nature and living in harmony with the elements by actively engaging in such acts of purification. It is interesting to note that the word ritual derives from the Sanskrit ritu, meaning seasons, and rites from Rita, the laws of the universe. These rituals and rites are thus an acknowledgement of the universal laws of nature. These rites and rituals play out this order of the universe as an act of submission and faith. Let us look at the terms Ubuntu in the African languages and compare it with Bandhu in Sanskrit. This presentation makes no claim of offering any expert definition of Ubuntu. It merely offers that if both the cultures are nature-based, then an understanding of nature as a philosophy and way of life, as expressed in the Vedas, can help facilitate such a comparative study. The word Ubuntu has a similar Sanskrit concept called Bandhu, meaning friend. It is from this Sanskrit root that we derive the English words bond, bind, and bonding. In the Vedas, the supreme being is Bandhu, the one we share a bond with, the one who creates and sustains us. During ceremonies and festivals, a thread is used to mark this bond that we tie ourselves to. For example, Rakhi or Raksha Bandhan is the bond of mutual respect between brother and sister, and Gath Bandhan is the nuptial knot of the bond between the bride and the groom. Bandhu marks the relationship of family of one human being with another, the acknowledgement of an inherent bond that marks our existence. This bond has much in common with the African human values of Ubuntu and the grammatical connotations of Bantu, Amabantu, Abantu, and Umuntu. Very much like Kuli, referred to in the case of Indians, Bantu was also used as a derogatory label for Africans. It is this commitment, both in the African and Indian traditions, that we all need to make towards translating our core values of caring and sharing into meaningful deeds, actions, and projects that give relevance to our desire to know and understand each other. There are several projects in South Africa, like the Aryan Benevolent Home, which caters for 800 orphans, aged, and homeless. The Narayan Jeevan Vedic Center, which provides primary health care for some 35,000 informal dwellers in Kenville, and Project Tripti, the quenching of thirst as the sinking of boreholes to help provide water for rural schools and communities. The building of schools, primary health care clinics are all successful programs which, besides providing a purely humanitarian service, also promote race relations and social cohesion. In many countries, politicians and other unscrupulous leaders find it convenient to play the race card to attract votes from gullible followers. It is a sad reflection on humanity that after all the love that religion preaches, we so easily fall prey to our inner fears and insecurities based on race. This conference, it is hoped, will change our mindsets and take us to new horizons of sharing the ancient wisdom of our cultures and emerging as a new humanity that cares for the earth, for our families, for our future generations, and the realization that without nature, we just cannot enjoy any life, dignity, love, or respect. All of these are sustained and nurtured on the fundamental principle of a mutual coexistence.
With these, we come to the conclusion of Indo-Pacific Zone, which ran for 2 days on specific hours, very suitable to this demography area of Indo-Pacific. In this 2 days discourse, we had 27 representations, 24 traditions, and we also heard a cross-continent discussion, very beautifully presented today. This all means that we do have such a common thread for understanding us more and more. I can only say that this Indo-Pacific zone might have given some hope of understanding each other, knowing each other more and more in coming years to see how we have been closely knit together. The ideas and values, what we have seen in performance, in our songs, in our words expression, these all would definitely carry a lot of weight for us to learn more and more. Just we were going to close this kind of first part of this globe, Indo-Pacific. Just today we heard a last word coming from Kalasha tribe in a remote Pakistan, who are the last 4,000 people left in this world. This Kalasha traditions we could not add because of the time factor. But I salute all the speakers, all the presenters, all the well-wishers who joined us continuously on different platforms. And it was wonderful to see our team led by Ishaniji, Sachinji, and Srishti behind us, and of course the technical team. I'm very, very thankful to all of you for being a source of inspiration, a source of happening, which was very much caused by your hard work, which has been going on for so many months. I hope the Indo-Pacific zone, which is ending, leads to a place when we have a face-to-face person, in-person meeting coming in very near future. Now let us wait and go to the zone of Europe and welcome Europe, welcome America thereafter. Namaste.
Thank you so much, Amarjeevji. What a wonderful way to kind of end with our Indo-Pacific lead, who's been driving this for many years in India and across the Indo-Pacific region. Like he said, thank you again to all the speakers. Would love it if you can join us in 2 hours where the Europe and Africa conference starts at 10 o'clock GMT, which which is on the poster right now. And then at 4 o'clock, which is GMT UK time, 4 o'clock, which is approximately 9:30 India time, where the global conference is going to be taking place. If you can join us, it would be wonderful. Otherwise, we'll see you all at the next conference in the next 3 years, hopefully in person and not a virtual one. See you soon. Namaste.